From the University of Belgrade, Faculty of Architecture, and I will be speaking as vice leader of the VG5, concluding working group of Restore, where I am also STSM and ITC coordinator manager. So I will also devote a few moments of my presentation to introduce all short-term scientific missions that were done within the VG5. So my presentation is going to be an overview of what we have done in the working group 5. I'm not really going to present results and similar. You can of course find everything you are interested in our upcoming booklet. It is not yet finished. It will be, of course, available at Restore website when it is printed. It is now in process, and I would like to introduce just some main goals that we had. So we were about scale jumping, since we wanted also to look into the future as being concluding group of Restore. We wanted to assemble all the results that were achieved before lifetime of other VG groups, and also to look a little bit further what to do else, and of course synthesize everything that we have done. So we are dealing with scale jumping, and also something that needs to be more present in discourse of regenerative environments and sustainable future, that is systems thinking. How did we approach to systems thinking in regenerative environments? I will come to that later, but of course we dealt with all interactions, tools, platforms, and metrics. So we covered from analyzing different influences and the state of the art, and where we can go further to, of course, some very practical results. So just to have an overview of how scale jumping group was working in Restore, I will say that you can see our infographics. So our main mission was exploring scale jumping potentials for neighborhood, city, and society-wide level regenerative sustainability, including analysis, solutions, and implementation. So scale jumping, we did not only think about scale jumping in size. Of course, it is implied and for sure there in all architectural urban studies, but also we were thinking in quality, how to actually upscale research potentials, to give new directions and interactions, to upscale market potentials, and of course, very important, networks, as we think that interdisciplinarity, of course, and intersectoral connections are, of course, key to develop sustainable future in a proper way, and really heavy interdisciplinary cooperation is needed if we want to achieve goals that are holistic and thinking that is systemic and holistic. So VG5 was organized through subtasks, and each subtask has a subgroup leader, where we dealt with different topics that you can see from the infographics, but also I will present a table of content of our book. And also for the main outcomes, you can see that the booklet that I mentioned, then of course we had sustainability special issue dedicated to this topic. We really had very interesting application and interesting paper to be out. And of course, as I mentioned, short-term scientific missions with, of course, dealing with main topics of assessment tool, digital techniques, digital twins, new economic models, which is of course very popular topic now, and through, I mean, circularity and circular future, and of course the systemic approach, and of course innovative methods, paradigms, and strategies. We of course had a training school performed in Vienna. I will also come back to this later, where we put to test some of our findings and results, and try to frame this holistic thinking into a very readable and very usable strategy, something like a toolkit and toolbox. I will come back to it later. And of course, for people, of course, many contributors, more than 80 people were active in this group. And for vice lead, there is myself, and leader Andras Wright from Hungary. Also, I would say specific with this group was that most of our work has been done during the pandemics. So it was, of course, differently organized, heavily virtual, and we did have some new topics to think about. We tried to address some of them, but not now to go into details. Pandemics, of course, rose many issues about proper future for the built environment. So we did have how to say some new aspects to think about. You can see here the cover for our new book, and I of course invite you all to download it when the time comes, which will be surely in mostly the month from here. And if you're interested in this scale jumping, please refer to this at our website. For the organization, as I said, from the work and the book, we of course have this introduction of the systemic thinking and how we can actually translate many different aspects rising from even physics and mathematics to the built environment. And this is this intersectoral and multidisciplinary collaboration that we need. It's not only with the natural sciences. We also have to deal with many aspects of humane, social, cultural, biophilic attributes that we wanted to blend in our findings. So we start, of course, from the analyzing this triangular matrix of nature, human, and the built environment, then transferring to tools, platforms, and metrics, which we can use, of course. In practice, you can see here the headlines, of course: digital tools, smart technologies, emerging technologies, of course, policies and legislation, and of course, practice exercise that we had in Vienna, and that will have its own afterlife. I'm currently in Vienna, assembling all the results from the training school, and also trying to apply them on development of a district here in Vienna through, again, making a very holistic strategy for the renewal of the urban districts. And also after this, in Belgrade in September, we will probably have further module with the Belgrade Cultural Center, considering this topic, which is very wide and very multicultural, and called the good urban life. Of course, what is this and how we treat built environments? Of course, we wanted to deal, of course, with the rise of technologies and to give an overview of how actually rise of technologies lead the way we design our environment, and how we can actually rethink this. As now mentioned in different conferences, now we have very developed technologies that can give us a lot, but do we have still a vision how to use those technologies in achieving something that is really holistic and, let's say, healthy environment for inhabitants, and how we can create meaningful relationships between human nature and the built environment? So just a slight overview. Of course, printing media gave us the possibility to actually pre-design architecture. So it was an expansion of digital images that we can share now globally. And this led, of course, to some kind of standardization in design. Industrial revolution, standardized production and manufacturing, of course, led to, let's say, standardized visual output of environment. So now you have very standardized processes that produce very standardized, skeletons for the building, or everything else that is combined in our visual environment. So we have now some things that we can expect from visual environments in a very predefined way. But can we actually change this? It is time to actually change this through the rise of digital and new media, and this is topic, of course, very interdisciplinary. There has been many things that we can learn also from the rise of informatics studies, and also even the sci-fi, let's say, some of the scenarios for the future that are actually applied and achieved in information science. So what can we do with it in the built environment? Of course, we go to a stage of non-standard technologies, variability, emergent and organic forms, customization, interactivity, and digitally supported participative design, altogether called nonlinear technologies. And this is something that we can use, of course, in producing more variable, let's say, paths to the future. And of course, involving all of these three main parameters: human nature and the built environment, whatever and however we actually define it. So also one thing that we all have to be aware about is this connectivity and this global connectedness. So the societies of today, of course, are less determined by objects and increasingly shaped by connectivity. What this means is that with all these network environments, we also have to think a lot about mediation, but this is topic which can separately just be discussed for hours. How do we mediate actually our environments and technologies? I would like to remind everybody, they are not here only as a tool, but also as media when we design our environments. But with networks, of course, and high-tech environments, there is no longer binary, really, opposition between town and country, urban and rural. Again, one topic which gained a completely new dimension in the pandemics. So we can also use this as something that we can work with actually in a proper way in the future. And I would like to quote also Roy Ascott, that connectedness, what he, implies that I think we can all be witness to, is a new principle of life, in a way, a new evolutionary stage in human development. So this connectedness should be treated properly also through our built environment design. But what about with all these technologies? Is it really alienating us from nature? Again, topic which can be discussed for hours, but can we somehow actually merge the development of technologies and our new way to connect to nature? Of course, we can. Technologies can bring us back to nature in a way which is appropriate, of course, for the 21st century, and of course the whole stage after the rise of digital media. So we are not going to, of course, to deny connectedness, for example, but we can moderate it, and we can actually go back to nature, but of course in a new way. Roy Ascott called this kind of nature the second, or let's say artificially not supported nature, but it is the nature which actually adopts artificial life as a part of it. So it is not opposition between artificial and natural, but it is about merging of artificial and natural, not to go into discussion of all terms. So I call this the neo-nature, and we should be optimistic about this, because if we go wrong, it really can guide humanity into completely new stages of actually humanism, like post-humanism, or even different theories. Here I would like to just present a few ideas from, of course, now existing very interesting, how to say, part of our discourse that are actually dealing with this approach of how to connect people and how to guide people to actually more simple life, but of course with the support of technology. So I quoted here Studio Drift. I guess you know them. And I really like this post, which came out again in the pandemics, because it is true, and we should create meaningful connections with our natural environment by working, of course, with contemporary technologies. We can live in harmony with the world in our own way, and there has never been, of course, better time for nature, humankind, and technology to be more in sync. What he coined here as a phrase, and can be, of course, worked on, is this sustainable technological support to the reconnected future. So how can we actually live more simply? Can we live more simply? Can we discover this, as he poetically says, happiness of a more simple life through actually working with technology that can support this? So this is this, let's say, optimistic and proper way to use technologies in future. And what we can identify in this approach is, of course, the biophilic design approach. I guess you are probably, and actually for sure, in more or less in touch with biophilic design principles. Here, I'm just pointed out very briefly a table of elements and attributes as Keller defined them. And this is something that we can merge with technological development. So how can we actually connect to nature in a way which is not only, of course, nature-based solutions and actual presence of nature. There are also some more abstract elements and attributes of biophilic design that should be always that should be always considered when designing the environment. And they are these place-based relationships where you can find the geographic connection to place, cultural connection, indigenous materials, then of course integration of culture and ecology. And this is something which is actually biophilic, and this is something which acknowledges also the social and the cultural dimensions of human existence, both with natural let's say attributes and elements. And this is something that will help us, of course, creating more holistic environments in future. I also point out here 14 patterns of biophilic design. It is a very useful publication, but where they also dealt with the biophilic attributes and how actually they contribute to human health, to human well-being, and also to are respectful of nature and guiding us to something which we can call sustainable, of course, and sustainable future, which is just in so many ways. So after this a little bit abstract introduction to what we dealt with, I will go back, but just briefly introducing you to the work that has been done. And as I said, interactions that we dealt through different how to say liaisons. Here you can see the whole nexus of all three of them. You can see the patterns that we work with, so human, design, place and space. We gave, of course, scale jumping intervention, small review that the practitioners can actually use, and also something called Restore 2030 rose out of the work of this subgroup, which is actually something as imaginary city that would actually use the principles from Restore, and also it will be a publication of its own, so please look for it on our website. When it is done, it is again turned into the future and combining many materials that we produced into something that can be used for education at actually any level, from the primary level to, of course, the university education. Here you can see human built environment and some main topics that were discussed. Then, for example, for nature built environment interactions, we had also one very fresh approach through small urban hacks, or how can we actually tackle major urban challenges through aquacultural smallness. And this is something that also deals with this scale jumping approach. And of course, for tools, platforms, and metrics, something that you heard maybe more into details from other groups. I will not read. You can see on the screen all these terms that are known to us. Then this, of course, smart technologies and what I already have been talking about, this connection between data and design of built environment. Then, of course, emerging technologies. You can find some very interesting examples there, and analysis. Of course, something as whole printed habitats, of course, 3D print, ICT city models, all the other things. For the framework, we have also frameworks analyzed and also assessed through their actually performance, let's say, if used for the designing of urban environments. Of course, legislation, we of course did not forget this very important part of the whole let's say system. And you can see here we done it through the EU policies. Where are they good, can they be any better, what in future? Also, I said for the Jump 2030 that we had this Good Urban Life training school, which is having an afterlife of its own. You can see it in the numbers. You can see the point was urban renewal of an existing neighborhood, but through holistic approach, where we blended social cultural relations and approaches, circular considerations, biophilic attributes, and of course tools for achieving climate mitigation and similar. My almost last slide is about what I mentioned, short-term scientific missions, of which many are ongoing. You can see a very interesting mashup of titles and very different areas, from the energy to holistic living and similar, through smart cities. So they are ongoing and will be also published at our website at the end. And of course, I would like to thank you all for your attention.